Dave, what do you know about genetics?
I know I have some
Yeah,
inside me.
and DNA and all that.
Yeah, I've probably got some of that as well.
Just reading something here. Did you know that diarrhea is hereditary?
No,
Apparently so.
really.
Yeah. Says here it runs in the genes.
Are we really at that level now where we're doing poo jokes?
That's quite a good one.
I got to say, diarrhea isn't fun, is it? It's not good when you're not farting with confidence.
No, nobody wants that.
No. Anyway, welcome everybody. Goodness knows what you've tuned into. It's supposed to be the Constant Geekery podcast.
It is the Constant Geekery podcast, and not only that, it is season 3, episode 2 of the Constant Geekery podcast.
Wow, that is indeed exciting.
What
have we got on the show today? So we're going to cover a couple of news stories. We've got our main topic though, which is all about AirTags and whether you can be stalked with an AirTag. So we'll get to that in a bit. Yep. And as per usual, a couple of rumours in the Rumour Mill to finish off. Now, the keen-eyed among you will have noticed that last week we cut out the main topic. We didn't cut it out. We did another version of it.
Yeah, we did.
With a tighter edit as a standalone video. So if you're not into the really long-form podcast content on YouTube, which I totally understand.
What is wrong with you?
I personally get bored. It's a struggle to stay awake myself when I'm listening to you talk on the podcast, Pete. So
harsh. Yeah, but some people don't watch it on YouTube. They watch it on various streaming platforms, and they probably use it while they're doing something even more tedious, like sleeping.
Well, and by watch, you mean listen to?
Yes.
So maybe on a podcast platform of choice. And since people are listening, may I encourage you to talk into your microphone, Pete?
I am.
Thank you. And actually, there is one other place where you can watch the podcast, and that is on Odyssey.
Right.
Yeah.
I've not heard of Odyssey. Tell me more.
It's basically another video platform, but all of our stuff, whatever we post on YouTube ends up on Odyssey as well. Awesome. I just thought I'd give it a try. I don't think anyone's looking at it, but okay. Who knows?
So if you are listening and you would like to watch the podcast moving forward, you can by going to youtube.com/the Constant Geekery podcast.
And we are on our own today. We're recording this on Monday, which is the 24th of January, but it will get published on Tuesday, the 25th of January, after Tom has edited it. But we've had to switch because of Pete's schedule. And so we've got
busy man.
We've got no Tom, we've got no Erin here, so there's no one to laugh at your jokes, which is basically the same as usual. And we've got to kind of push all the buttons and film ourselves at the same time. And I'm looking at the monitor, Pete, and I'm thinking I've possibly not adjusted the camera correctly because we've got quite a bit of headroom above us.
Oh, that's fine. We look lovely still. It's fine. And you say there's no one here to laugh at my jokes. I put to you, all our dear subscribers can listen to my jokes and laugh at them and enjoy them, as they often say in the comments, in between that and commenting on my lovely, smooth, Carl Sagan-esque voice.
Oh, goodness sake.
I'm not dropping that one.
No, literally one viewer out of the, 30,000 subscribers on the main channel, one of them suggested that Pete's voice sounded a bit like Carl Sagan. And I don't know, Pete, you've only mentioned it about 25 times since.
Well, you know what they say, if you mention something enough, it becomes truth.
Yeah, I've not heard that said. So let's get into the podcast. Let's do some news. You've got a news story, Pete,
yeah.
All to do with dating.
It's all to do with dating. So Apple are going to allow, so we talked some time back about how Apple's App Store works and how there was a bit of a hoo-ha with, who was it again? Epic Games, wasn't it? Wanting to take payment outside of the Apple ecosystem. Well, Apple are going to allow third-party payment options for dating apps in the Netherlands.
Okay, that seems oddly specific.
Well, that's because the Dutch antitrust authority had threatened Apple with a fine of around about $57 million if they didn't. So basically, Apple have acquiesced and they will allow both in-app and third-party web-based payment processing outside of Apple's payment processing.
Okay, interesting. I'm curious to know if we got any subscribers in the Netherlands. Is there a particular excitement around dating apps in the Netherlands? Why just dating apps?
Didn't specify why that was the case, although Apple did say there weren't many that were based in the Netherlands. Therefore, this ruling won't actually really benefit the Dutch economy in any way, shape, or form beyond what it will do already.
Right.
Apple's still going to take its cut,
Which is
seems
right and fair.
reasonable. Yeah,
If they're providing the store. I just want to. I heard someone say something about this the other day. You know, you can't go and pitch up in a supermarket, take some of their shelf space to sell your goods, and expect not to pay for that privilege.
no,
Right.
exactly.
So this is Apple should be able to charge something for it. The amount they charge. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously something that's up for discussion, but my personal stance on it is Apple make the App Store, they make the rules, they market it.
The only reason people can sell stuff on the App Store is because Apple created it. You know, surely that's fair.
And not just the App Store, all of the devices on which the apps can be distributed to, and of course the developer kits,
Yep.
the documentation, the training facilities.
And as we discussed the other day for our agency, because we do app development, they're making that easier and easier all the time for people to enter that market. So, you know, why shouldn't they therefore get a cut of the proceeds? I think a lot of people think because Apple are already worth what they're worth, it seems wrong. But, you know, if you eliminate that from it, if you and I were to put some kind of ecosystem together where people could sell their stuff and we were to take a cut, would people really be upset if we took a percentage?
No, I don't think so. It's always easy though, isn't it, to agree to these things in the first instance. But what happens then is the money starts coming in, and people tend to live to their means.
Yeah.
It's true also of corporations. So then they're sort of finding themselves in a position where maybe the initial excitement of their app or product has died off, and they could do with a boost in payments.
Yeah.
And they're looking at it, and then they go, oh, hang on a minute, here's this big chunk we're paying over to Apple. Maybe after all, despite having agreed to it and known what it was all along, let's suddenly decide that maybe we don't want to pay that anymore.
Maybe.
I'm just hypothetically speaking.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. That's what it is. There are a few things. If you are a developer submitting this app to this region, you will need to submit a separate binary, a separate app to operate in this, and that will need to go through the normal submission process.
That's convenient then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the submission process is never tricky, is it?
No, it's really smooth.
Always.
It's really smooth.
Oh, goodness me.
So I suspect this isn't as simple as it is, as it's made out, and perhaps not the win for antitrust that it's made out to be by some. I've got another concern about it as well, and it's the UX, or the user experience. So whether you like it or not, when you buy something through the App Store, and then if you do any in-app purchases, and that includes things like, you know, subscription-based services like Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever it might be that you're going for, that's a really smooth process. You just double-click and authorize it, and off you go. If you've then got to be pushed out to a third-party site where you've got to enter your card details, well, I'd say that's a degradation in the user experience if that's what you want. And my concern is, you know, we had the cookie ruling a few years ago where, have you ever tried going on a website these days, particularly on a tablet or a mobile device?
Oh, it does my head in. I just press accept all on all of them because I don't actually care.
No, and it makes a complete mockery of the process. So what you've got is a situation where your user experience in browsing the web is impaired massively because you're constantly being faced with all these pop-ups around consent and privacy and cookie and all that kind of thing. Not saying that isn't important, but the way it's been executed and foisted by legislation on the internet, I think has just made it very frustrating for most users.
Yeah, it has. And, you know, there's nothing stopping you. I mean, I didn't subscribe to Netflix through Apple. I did it on the Netflix website. So there's nothing to stop you signing up for a service on a separate website. So the only restriction is what you're talking about, is diverting users from within an app onto a separate payment system over which Apple has no control. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, can I just, whilst we're having a little rant about stuff that's ruined the internet,
Yeah.
from our perspective as web developers, for those who don't know, Pete and I run a web development company. So some years ago, Google decided that everything needed to be secure. So every website needs to go and run over HTTPS. So you have an SSL certificate. And a lot of people don't understand how this works. And what Google has done has not actually improved the security of the web. Now, in the old days, if you're, I don't know, Joe Blogg's Plumber Inc., he doesn't need a secure certificate. He's got a brochure website, probably has nothing more than a contact form on the site. So some would argue, well, I want my data to be transmitted to the server securely. Well, yeah, okay, valid point. But truth is, probably we're only talking about stuff that's in the public domain anyway. And, that's a separate argument. But he didn't have to have a secure certificate. I remember things started changing because Google was giving priority in the search engine rankings to websites that had secure certificates.
That's right.
So we had to start buying certificates for our customers. Now, with the way this works, so you can have a secure connection to the server that is fully encrypted and absolutely 100% secure from that perspective. But the browser will tell you that it's not secure if you don't have a valid certificate. So there's two components to a website being secure. First of all, there's the actual traffic, internet traffic being encrypted. That's step one. And step two is a certificate from a known and trusted authority that confirms you are who you say you are. Now, which of those two things, Pete, would you say is more important? In these times of identity theft and everything.
Well, yeah, you want to be able to validate that someone is who they say they are.
Right. And so I would say that is more important. Now, I'm not saying that technology doesn't exist for people to intercept unsecure traffic going from over the internet to web servers to extrapolate confidential information. But I put it to you, that's much, much harder than setting yourself up.
Like a phishing website.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And pulling people in. But what's happened is because all of these, every website had to have a secure certificate, we started to see a reduction in the complication of the process. Now, when I first started working in the web, we're talking in the 90s here, when you wanted a secure certificate, you had to fill in paperwork, send off the paperwork. It was a long process. Whilst this trusted authority would verify you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
And
probably when you started in the internet, you probably had to do it with quill and goat parchment.
Exactly that, and occasionally with smoke signals.
Yes.
Yeah. Things have changed, and we started to get domain validation. So the way this works is, if you can receive email on the domain for which you're buying the certificate for, then you're deemed to be in control of that domain, and then a certificate is issued. Well, that's a huge step down from verifying who you are.
Yeah.
So for a time, we had two levels of certificates. You had the EV certificates.
That's
you remember those?
Yeah, I remember EV.
Yeah. So you had the name of the company up in the browser. Yeah, Google did away with that as well on Chrome. And now we're left with this kind of situation where people want cheap certificates. And there's places like Let's Encrypt. And Let's Encrypt will issue certificates automatically. You can have a script running on your server to automatically issue certificates. They don't know who you are at all.
It's a bit like the Wish of the certificate world, isn't it? You can get a certificate, but don't necessarily put any store by actually doing what it says on the tin.
Well, and this is it, but it's probably true for many other certificates. That's not just single out Let's Encrypt. I'm just using that as an example because it's so fast to get your certificate, and because it is trusted.
Well, this is the problem
in many
isn't
browsers.
It's the same as the cookie law. It gives a false sense of security.
Yeah.
Because people look at the padlock and think, "Great, I'm safe," and they're not safe.
No, and this is the problem, and that you're changing the paradigm, and you go from this situation where, oh, I see a padlock, I'm now secure, to the point where everybody has a padlock.
Yeah,
And
it's a bit like my age-old thing about someone always sends you their email as high priority, then nothing's high priority.
That's it. Exactly that. And if they send it with the title in all caps, it gets deleted straight away. Or is that just me?
That's probably just you.
Okay. Anyway, we've totally digressed into Dave's little rant about web certificates.
Maybe that's a new section for
Dave's
the
rants.
rant of the week.
I don't think there's enough time in the universe to cover all of my rants, Pete.
Do you know, my brother, he runs a business as well in a completely different industry, in the retail industry, but quite a niche industry. But in his office at the back of his shop is a chalkboard. Well, I won't say my brother's name because I don't want to embarrass him, but it's his name. Rant of the day, and there's basically some perennials on there, including IT, because so when the genes were being selected, going back to genetics, I got all the tech genes and he got all the knuckle scraping genes. Basically, he never watches this podcast, so I'm probably safe. But yeah.
It's a good job because isn't he bigger than you?
He is. Yeah, he's about 3 inches taller than me. But he is also a lot older than me, so he's quite frail
And
now.
you are quite old yourself.
Yes.
That must make him at least in his 90s.
Well, quite possible. Let's really hope he doesn't ever stumble across this episode. Anyway, yes, so he has this chalkboard with rants of the day on. I think we should have a rant of the week from you.
Okay, well, I
Or
won't have
us.
any problem coming up with any rants, but there we go. Anyway, maybe you found that interesting. If so, good.
Maybe we could even get a jingle for rant of the week as well.
Oh, no, let's not go down this road.
Yeah, okay. Any other news that we want to cover off this week?
Well, let's stick with the whole antitrust theme, shall we? And just mention, I mean, it's been quite big news in the tech world. Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard,
Who?
the game developer.
No, who are Microsoft?
Okay. And this is a 68.7... no, I've put million. It's not million. It's
I was
billion.
going to say that's pocket change now, isn't it, in the corporate
billion
world.
dollars. $68.7 billion. How many people are there in the world? Just is it about 9 billion?
9 billion.
So I'm just going to do a little bit of math on my computer.
Dave is doing math now. On his M1 Max, he is using the calculator app. In fact, he's not even using the calculator app.
I'm using Spotlight to do a bit of quick math, which is a useful shortcut, folks. You can just type in a sum
Command
into
space.
Spotlight.
Command space brings up Spotlight. It's the best shortcut in the world.
I think we're probably talking, let's just round it down to the nearest 50 cents. So it's probably $7.50 for every person alive. That's what Microsoft has just paid. And these numbers, they tend to roll off the tongue, don't they? And we're talking billions all the time. Well, it's a staggering amount of money. And I'm
it's not
struggling
real.
to understand how Activision and Blizzard could even be worth that much money.
It's not real, though. All this, there's a really good YouTube channel, and I'm going to do a shout out to it if that's okay, called Economics Explained. Well worth watching. Some very interesting stuff on there, and I think fairly well disclaimed and balanced. But you can learn a lot of concepts from that, and this is just nonsense money. Yeah, there is not $68.7 billion sitting in a vault somewhere.
No, I mean this is all based on share prices, and Microsoft is offering $95 a share. So that's how they come up with that money. I find it incredibly frustrating how they come up with these crazy numbers, whereas hardworking individuals, running small to medium-sized businesses, when they want to sell their business, they usually get ripped off.
Yeah.
But there we go.
Yeah, let's not go there.
No,
But anyway,
vast sum of money.
what's the concern?
Well, it's that Microsoft already acquired Bethesda last year. Now they've got Activision Blizzard, which gives you titles like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, which, things I've never played, but we all know the names. They're fairly ubiquitous in the
Chess.
gaming sphere. Chess.
Yeah, do they do a chess game?
I expect they probably have, because they do have a massive back catalogue as well,
Okay.
which Microsoft can then...
I can remember Activision writing games in the 80s. I seem to recall.
Absolutely, yeah.
From the Spectrum and the Amiga and the Atari. And
Atari, yeah. So there's a lot of money in there, I guess, for someone who markets it properly. Will that be Microsoft? Who knows? I guess that the main concern is for those who are on other platforms like PlayStation. If Microsoft turn around and say, oh, actually, the next Call of Duty is not going to be available on any other platform apart from Xbox,
I don't think that will happen.
I think they can. I mean, the deal would never go through if they were going to do something.
Do you know what
like
I think might happen? Is it might come out on Xbox first.
Yeah.
But I think Microsoft would be missing a very big piece of the pie if they excluded other game platforms. And I also think it would. They're not stupid. They would recognise that by excluding that, you potentially threaten the existence of those games consoles, PS5 or whatever it might be. And that's not good for them in the long run. You know, if you just have one games console, you're going to end up in a situation where there's no progress, and that will stifle and retard the whole market.
Yeah, and I think they need to remember as well that a lot of people who game on consoles also have PCs, which by default makes them Xbox customers as well.
Yeah.
So I don't see any mileage at all. And Microsoft have already come out and said they've spoken to Sony and they're not planning to do any of this stuff. But nonetheless, it's concerning a lot of people. But I think it's probably a deeper dive topic, maybe for another podcast.
Should we do another podcast on it? Would you like us to go on about this some more?
Yeah, let us know. And of course, actually, if you've got any ideas for topics for the podcast, do drop us a line or make a comment below if you're on YouTube. But the email address is podcast@constantgeekery.com.
And our carrier pigeon name is Hank. So if you want to send it via carrier pigeon, just send it to hank@constantgeekery.com.
People are going to now think that's an actual email address, and it definitely isn't.
No, it isn't.
No. Let's get on to our main topic.
Yes. So Stalky McStalkTag, as I want to call it.
Okay.
So this is all about AirTags. So it's fair to say we were really excited when AirTags came out, mainly because it had taken so.
Just define really excited, because I don't remember like dancing around or anything.
We were mildly interested when AirTags came out. Yeah, sorry, we don't do hyperbole on this show, do we? AirTags have been on Apple's sort of product rumour list for a long time, and they kept putting them back and kept putting them back. And the cited reason for that was,
I don't know. I have no interest in AirTags.
they wanted to get it right. They
okay.
wanted to make sure the security was right, and it was up at the standard of Apple products. So for those of you that don't know, what is an AirTag, Dave?
I'm the worst person. No, I can explain.
Okay.
It's this round disc thing. I do know what an AirTag is. Yeah, they're small round discs, which are pretty cheap, actually, as low as sort of $25, I think, if you buy a pack of 4.
Yeah. 3.
3?
I thought it was 3.
Oh, I thought it
Might
was
be
4.
4.
So that shows how much we know. And then you can then spend much more than that on a holder for it. Yeah. So they do turn out to be quite expensive, especially if you go with the Hermes holder, which is excruciatingly expensive. What the AirTag does, it uses Bluetooth LE to connect to any phone or device within its vicinity that is within the Apple ecosystem, and that allows it to be triangulated and located. So
I think it uses NFC as well.
I think it does, yes. Combination of technologies, and you can pop one of these things, say, in your handbag, Pete. I know you do like a handbag.
I normally favour a clutch.
A clutch. So you can pop it in your clutch, and you'll always know where your clutch is.
Yes, exactly. Clutch is a funny word, isn't it? Because I always think of a car when you hear the word clutch. But ladies, what evening dress?
And perhaps gentlemen as well have clutches.
People
these
that
days.
evening dress. Let's not go there. So Apple spent lots of time both getting the design and the security concerns ironed out, because this kind of Bluetooth tracking device that helps you find things that you've lost, like your keys or your clutch or whatever it might be, they're not new, are they? As we know, Apple aren't particularly known for brand new products. What they're known for is refining an existing product to the point where it becomes ubiquitous with Apple, some would say. So they've spent a lot of time getting the design and security concerns ironed out. So, for example, it's no good for tracking someone anonymously, like, for example, putting one in your car, because it tells you if you're being followed by an unknown AirTag, and that tag will also make a sound.
And that in itself needed refining, because I can remember iJustine, and I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with iJustine's tech YouTube channel, and her sister Jenna posted on Twitter about they'd gone for a walk, and because Justine had some of these AirTags, Jenna's phone was just going off constantly to warn her that someone had an AirTag. But I think they've fixed that now, and it's less aggressive.
Yeah,
but it does notify you.
It does, and because I was quite excited that maybe I could put one in. I've got a camper van that I hire out to people to go on their holidays, and it's got various security in it. But I was thinking, as an extra layer of security, could I bury an AirTag somewhere on the vehicle? And that particular feature made me think it was probably not great to do that, because people would know that you're being followed. So what this all boils down to is that AirTags are no good for stalkers, except that it looks like they might be.
I thought we might be going in that direction, since this piece is called Stalky McStalkTag.
Yeah, and I think it's probably fair to say at this point that we're going to examine this and examine some of the stuff that's been reported, and we'll, as always, draw our own conclusions at the end. But it does seem that numerous people have been reporting to the police and the media that they have had their iPhone tell them that they are being tracked by an unknown device and that their movements are being followed. So not just specific locations, but routes they've taken, and actually their home location, which has prompted them to call the police.
That's quite scary, actually, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? For your phone to say there's a device near your person that knows where you are right now that isn't registered to you. That's unsettling.
Yeah.
So you can understand the concern. And Apple support have confirmed that, particularly in one case, this was an AirTag suspected to be in the person's car. A mother with 4 children living on their own.
So I just want to interject at that point, because when I did a little bit of research myself for this item, I came across a useful article on PC Mag where they were talking about how you can protect yourself from these things, and we'll maybe cover those points.
Yeah, I think that would be a very useful service.
But they've got a photo here, and what I'll do is I'll give the photo to Tom so that he can put it up in the edit. So if you are watching on YouTube, that's youtube.com/The Constant Geekery Podcast, then you'll be able to see this image. It's an image of a car with its bonnet or hood, depending on which part of the world you're in, up, and a shot of the engine. And underneath it says a Bluetooth tracker can easily be placed on your car. Can you spot the one hidden here? And I've looked at this image fairly extensively, and I cannot see a hidden AirTag. So we're going to put the image up, and you can maybe pause the video and let us know if you do manage to spot it. But I do have to put the caveat up that there's every possibility they just put up a stock image of a car with its hood up.
Can you send me the image? Just airdrop me the image, and while we're on the podcast, I'm going to do a reverse image lookup on that and see if it is indeed a stock image.
That would be quite funny if lots of people were...
Oh, I found it. We find out it's just a Getty image or something like that. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, a nice wind up. In any case, though, the point is well made, because when you look at open the bonnet of your car, have a look at the engine bay. Would you stand any chance of finding something as small as an AirTag if it was well concealed on your car?
Well, there's so many places just in that picture that you could put things. And no disrespect to anyone out there, I'm no expert when it comes to cars these days. You open the bonnet of a car and you're looking for where do I put the water for the screen wash, and that is about it for most people, I would imagine, unless you maintain your own car. So if it's a modern car, you're probably looking around going, well, I don't know what anything is here anyway.
Or if it's a Tesla, then you book it in with the Tesla service centre and wait a couple of months for them to deal with it. In fairness, someone would probably crawl under the car and reach up and put the AirTag in, because they might not have the keys to the car. But that doesn't mean they can't access the engine space. I don't want to make everyone paranoid here and start sort of checking their car all the time, wondering if there's an AirTag in it.
No, but this particular case, the police and Apple support confirmed it was indeed an AirTag, and it's as of the time of the story that we took this from, it hadn't been found.
So I just want to say as well, at this point, this is not something unique to AirTags. This could, in theory, be done with any kind of tracking device. I believe that Tile are also facing similar issues. So this isn't a dig at Apple that we're doing here.
No.
So
No, it's just a story that is in the ether that we wanted to cover.
So let's carry on with the story, and we won't worry so much about this reverse lookup, Pete, because it's
absolutely.
taking too much time.
Well, no, we can carry on. So,
Right.
Apple always state that they take security seriously. You know, it's embedded into their ethos. So, how do we feel about that?
Yeah, I think they do. I think this is a. I mean, maybe we'll save most of our thoughts to the end, but this is not a simple thing to get right. If you want to create these kind of devices, it's never going to be easy. I think Apple does care about security, and I imagine that they've done all sorts of testing. But you and I both know, Pete, from the development work we've done, when you do anything new, you build something new, things come out of the woodwork in testing, and things come out of the woodwork when it actually goes live to people.
Yeah, because users always do things you would never expect them to do.
Yeah, you can think of every possible scenario in your head, and you think we're good to go live with this, and then you immediately get users doing the most bizarre things.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, right, we've got to fix that. So I'm able to see it from probably Apple's perspective.
Yeah, and what I would say is, you know, Apple for all its big corporate thing have always been reasonably good at privacy and security. I would say better than most.
I'm more comfortable having my data with Apple than I would be with, say, Google or Microsoft.
Yeah. So
and that, I don't know if that's a tangible thing, but that's just based on what I know about all of these companies and what I've learned, I feel most comfortable with Apple. I'm not saying I feel completely comfortable, but most comfortable.
Okay, so let's go through some of the things that Apple say they've considered in this. First of all, Apple say that AirTags are designed to track things, not people. So, just by stating that, presumably any stalker getting an AirTag will go, "Oh, it's no good for people."
I imagine
they'd immediately think that, wouldn't they?
Can I just say though, I think that they're missing a huge market here because it's perfect for kids. Have you ever lost your children?
No, I'm a responsible parent.
I don't believe you. Have you ever lost your children?
Yes, several times.
Right.
Unfortunately, I've got them back.
Yeah.
No,
doesn't always work out, does it?
So, real story, 2012 London Olympics. Okay. Back in the days when large amounts of people were able to get together safely from, various perspectives, not entirely. And my, what would he have been, 4 coming up 5-year-old son at the time was with my wife. I wasn't there. I had to work. Turns around in this big event area, suddenly realised, don't know where he is. Thousands, if not, tens of thousands of people absolutely crammed. Now, if you've got children and if you've even lost sight of them for a minute, you can imagine the panic. Long story short is we found him, or the police found him, and someone very responsible brought them to the police, and he was okay. But my goodness, what a shock. And so, yes, having an AirTag on a child of that age, particularly in a busy space, unless you've got them leashed to you, and that's not always possible, that would be a great thing.
It would be a good thing. When I was little, I must have been 2 or maybe 3. We were on a family holiday, some vacation in France, and my dad and some friends we were staying with went off each morning to go to the local farm, as you did back then in France, to get your various milks, and then to the bakery to get your bread of
or as
choice.
the French like to call it, the boulangerie.
The boulangerie. Yeah, and I decided to follow my dad, but he didn't know that, and because I left so long after him, but I put on my boots and off I walked down the lane. And it just so happened they were coming out of the lane of this farm right at the point when I was walking past.
Otherwise,
it'd be all. Maybe I'd be French. I'd be speaking French, Pete.
French Dave. That would be quite a lot.
Now, I imagine we're going to chop this segment of rambling waffle and reminiscing out of the tightly edited version of this topic. So this just goes to show you what you miss out on. So if you just go for the short edited version, you miss out on gems like that. Pete losing his kids, me almost being French.
I got stuck in a tractor once when I was a kid. There you go. But I wasn't lost. I was just stuck in the tractor with baling twine that I'd managed to basically do around all the doors and knobs, and then I couldn't open anything. It was terrifying. But I wasn't lost. I was just contained by my own hand. I was about 5. Anyway.
Have you seen that YouTube video? Sorry, we're just totally rambling here. You see that YouTube video of the guy who's using the packing machine that's putting those plastic straps? You know, the plastic straps you get around boxes and stuff. And he's using that, but he gets himself caught in it. So it's like over his head. And he sort of shouts for help, and this other guy comes over, and then he's getting caught in it as well.
No, but I think we should probably put a link to that in the podcast.
I'll see if I can find it.
Anyway, time moves on. So if you have an iPhone, then and you have an unregistered AirTag moving with you, you will be alerted by your iPhone, which is what happened in the person that we're using as a report here. And then that user can play a sound to locate the AirTag, disable it, and stop sharing your location with it.
Right.
So that's one of the security features that the AirTag gives you to prevent this. However, there is a small potential problem with it. It can take some time to notify you of that.
How long?
Some people say 4 to 8 hours, some saying a lot longer than that. But yeah.
So this is what they tuned from what I was talking about earlier when it was going off all the time for Jenna Ezra. They've changed that now. So now there's a delay to stop that from happening, but the delay is possibly a touch too long.
Possibly a lot can happen. Even if you say 4 hours, a lot can happen in 4 hours. If someone is out to do harm, that's potentially a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so potentially tweaking that down to find out a more happy medium might help. Another feature is that AirTags, if they have been separated from their true owner for a period of time, and this period of time is cited at somewhere between 8 and 24 hours, starts chirping at random intervals.
Not particularly loud chirping, though, as it transpires.
60 decibels.
That's really quite quiet.
Yeah, very easy to muffle, particularly if you were to hide it on a vehicle.
You'd never hear it.
No way. There's also another problem. AirTags can be turned off remotely by their user.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I could put one on you. You could go somewhere. I'm tracking you.
I don't go anywhere interesting, though, so don't bother doing that.
I know. I know that. I've got a full map of your movement. If anyone would like to see Dave's movements, then that's a trailer moment there, isn't it? We should start doing trailers for this on Shorts with comedy moments. It's very poo-centric episode.
I don't want to do YouTube Shorts, and again, this is yet another bit that will get cut out the tighter edit. But I'll tell you why I don't want to do YouTube Shorts, because I did a couple, and what happened is they got stolen, and I then had to sort that out. And also, you don't get paid. YouTube doesn't pay its creators.
I understand that. So, that's probably something for another time. But the way to get around them getting stolen is either to make them boring or put our faces on them, or both.
Well, it was, yeah. We'll talk about that another time, actually, because I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So, anyway, you can turn them off. So I could put one on your person. You could go somewhere within this window that I know I've got before it will start beeping at you, and then I could just turn it off. So I'd know where you were for a period of time.
Right.
So, a bit scary. And of course, as we've talked about, this is all within the iPhone Apple ecosystem. Except Apple did release an Android app last December. Apple released an Android app. Can you believe that?
I can.
Yeah. And that allows non-iOS users to be notified of unregistered AirTags.
Right.
Except there's a few problems with it. When I say notified, the app is a little bit bare bones. And possibly we can show a screenshot, give that to Tom to put over this point here. It's pretty much a button that can scan the surrounding area for basically any nearby.
Oh, so you've got to actually manually activate it.
Yeah, so when I say it notifies you, it doesn't notify you. There's no push notifications going on. It won't tell you of an issue. You have to go, I wonder if I've been stalked today. Now, that's better than nothing, but it does feel like a bit of token effort.
At the end of the day, they've probably got quite a few challenges on Android to set this up, because on on iOS, you've got a complete set of libraries in the development suite for working with Find My.
Yeah.
So it give
And
them
a chip
time.
on
If it only came out in
new phones
December,
uses the U1 chip or something, doesn't it? I think.
that's true. Yeah.
Give them time. Yeah, that's fine. At the moment as well, do you know how many Android devices there are worldwide?
There's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to say a lot, Pete.
It's about 3 billion.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so basically it's about, well, how much did Microsoft pay for Activision?
A lot more than
Guess how many downloads the Google Play Store estimate there have been of the Apple Track My AirTag for Android?
Well, I'm going to say there's probably a lot, but I'm going to comparative to the number of devices, I suspect it's a smaller number, and I'll tell you why I suspect that, Pete.
Go on.
And that is because the reason why Android is so popular around the world is because Android devices are much cheaper. So in parts of the world where Apple is just unobtainium for most people, then they're going to have Android. But if the iPhone is unobtainium, maybe AirTags are as well. So
True. That's a good point, actually.
My expectation is the number won't be very big.
100,000.
That's not very big compared
it's
to 3
very
billion.
small. It's very.
I mean, it's a
small.
big number, but when you put it next to 3 billion, it makes it look really, really small.
Yeah. 100,000 is the largest small amount of money that someone will pay to humiliate themselves on television, according to Mitchell and Webb.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's quite a precise.
If you want to chuckle, search for Mitchell and Webb Apprentice on YouTube. There's a very good sketch there. And if you watch The Apprentice either stateside or in the UK, there is a series out in the UK at the moment, which made me watch it again the other day. Yeah, £100,000 is the smallest large amount of money someone will consider to be a good prize for humiliating themselves in a public arena.
Okay.
We do it for free on this podcast, but
well, yeah, we've missed a trick there.
So, yeah, you're right. There are technical challenges one might ask, but in terms of keeping people safe, does it matter that Apple gives perhaps a bit more to if they're able to scan for these types of devices for any rogue AirTags? Is it that much more effort to make it a push notification so it's doing it for you rather than you having to elect to do it?
Well, I suspect the reason behind that will be battery consumption because iPhones are using that. Is it the U1 chip or U2 chip, whatever it's called? No, U2. That's the band, isn't it?
Yeah,
with the 3 chords.
They know 4 chords now, and I like U2. I'm going on record as saying that I like U2, and I suspect many of our subscriber like U2 as well. So not everyone is
that's fine.
I'm a Dream Theater fan like you. I also like Dream Theater as well.
I've completely lost my thought.
Closure in Moscow is a good band too. Have you ever heard of them?
I haven't. No,
they are awesome.
This has got nothing to do with tech and the podcast.
Well, they use tech to produce things, and they use Spotify and things like that. So, interesting thing. I was talking about Spotify. A lot of musicians are going independent now, but that's a story for another podcast.
It is. So we'll get back to this low power chip that's in the phones that is used to locate these devices. Now, not all phones have that chip. An AirTag is still compatible, so it's an additional function. But having something like that running in the background is something that is designed into iOS and the iPhone, whereas Android doesn't have that.
It's being tacked on to whatever's...
Which means it
will drain your battery.
It will drain your battery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm deliberately being devil's advocate today because, we're not Apple fanboys, but we take for granted these things that the iPhone can do, like the low power consumption, the specialized chips. And that means that people are getting in a hoo-ha about this need to sort of consider all the options, because it isn't, as you mentioned earlier, just AirTags that have this problem.
No.
Tile have essentially got the same problem. The difference being, I suspect, is that, as is often the case, Apple gets all the focus because they've got such a massive market and ecosystem. So they get all the grief or the reporting about this. Whereas Tile, I'm guessing, have got a much smaller, I haven't got any figures on it, but they've got a much smaller ecosystem of users. So it's not going to be as easy for someone to assume that if you put a tile on someone's car that it's going to be detected by the lost and found tile network.
So if you're concerned about this, you can search for trackers. There are apps that will allow you to do that. Specifically, the one you just mentioned, the Tracker Detect thing that's on the Google Play Store. If you find an AirTag that doesn't belong to you, you might think to yourself, "Woohoo, free AirTag!" But unfortunately, they're tied to a particular Apple account, aren't they?
They are, which kind of doesn't make it great for covert operations, really, does it?
Not really, no, because Apple will know the iCloud account which is attached to. Anyway, from the perspective of taking it for yourself, the person would have to delete it from their iCloud account before you could then take ownership of it. But what you can just do is take the battery out, which is a pretty low-tech way of destroying it. If you can't see how to take the battery out on any, if it's not an AirTag, some other tracker, put it in water and take it to the police station.
Yeah. Or if hit it with a hammer many, many times.
You just be cautious with that because the battery might explode. Better off putting it in water.
Follow what he says. He knows a lot more than me. So I think this is perhaps a bit of an overflated story. Obviously, people's safety, particularly vulnerable people's safety, is really important. And there is a gap here. There is a gap here. So be cautious. I'd like to actually do some testing on an AirTag to see, because we've seen videos about how easy it is to find AirTags in really built up areas, haven't we?
I'd be very keen to see how they handle rural Somerset.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe a video coming on that soon, perhaps on the main channel. That might be quite fun.
Do some hide and seek with Erin, and then leave her, and then do the AirTag video.
That would be great. Yeah, take Erin to a remote location, leave her there without any kind of AirTag or phone, and then do a video about AirTags. That would be great. So for those of you who think that we're unkind to Erin, we really aren't. She deserves it. And if we weren't, then I guarantee you we'd all be dead. And by all, I mean the entire globe.
She needs to be kept in check.
She does.
It does feel, though, that... this is a very real issue, but there's not a huge number of reported cases. This is by no means ubiquitous. This isn't happening everywhere. And I think that somebody who's... I suppose stalkers are maybe not in the right mind, but professionals who are following people are not likely to use AirTags. They'll be using something else. But yeah, so stalkers, maybe they could be the kind of people that might not think things through properly and use an AirTag.
Well, they're probably not in their right frame of mind when they're doing those kind of activities. So yeah.
So yeah, be interesting to see how it develops. I'm not personally massively concerned by it. I think Apple will refine the system, and you either have a situation where you either have a world where these things exist and there comes the potential of being stalked, or you don't make these things.
But that, if you use that logic, that could extend to a lot of things that have the potential for misuse,
like sharp knives.
Yeah.
I like to use a sharp knife when I'm preparing food, for example.
Because if you don't, it's very hard to slice a tomato with a hammer.
It is. But some people, who remain nameless, like Erin, might use a knife to stab.
Yeah, she might sleep with one near her person because she wants to stab people. So, they can, and you take a car. Car is a lethal weapon, and we've seen that. Sadly, in recent years, people using them.
Is Erin driving now?
I'm afraid she is.
That is a concern for everyone in the UK.
Yeah. But the point is there. Bleach.
Great for cleaning stuff, or doing what my mum always used to do, which was putting cloths in the sink with bleach, and then said, "Don't use the sink because there's bleach in the sink."
Yeah.
Did that happen to everyone else?
My wife does that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a nightmare.
Great for cleaning your loo. Not so great as an aperitif.
Not a winner. So I think we probably need some kind of disclaimer at this point that these things can be dangerous if misused. So, and the same is true of a lot of things.
And people will misuse things and use them for the wrong thing. And is it up to Apple to fix that for everybody and to make people responsible? Is it up to a knife manufacturer to, do Victorinox become responsible every time someone gets stabbed?
Who?
People what make the Swiss Army knives. Thanks. Yeah, maybe maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I certainly think that Apple will take it seriously. I'm sure they'll refine the system. I'm sure they'll make it better, and I'm sure these other companies that have the same products will be doing their best as well. Because I actually think they are genuinely useful products.
Yeah.
And being able to track things and stuff, and in the case of people, small people that belong to you, like children,
very good, very good.
That's worth doing.
You mentioned Switzerland earlier.
Well,
the land of Toblerone, Swiss Army knives, bank accounts, that kind of thing. What would you say is the best thing about Switzerland?
I've never been there, but I would have thought the scenery.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but the flag's a big plus.
Why do I have to endure two of your jokes in the podcast?
Because it was contextual.
Okay, thank you for
which probably brings us to a nice segue into the Rumour Mill.
No, it doesn't, because I want to stay on AirTags.
Have you not finished ranting? I'm sorry.
Look, don't you think this is another antenna gate?
You mean when everyone made a big hoo-ha about the fact that iPhones, and only iPhones, drop signal if you held them wrong?
Yeah, and in fact, we all do the
Which is
joke,
not
don't
true.
we? We all do the "you're holding it wrong" joke when we talk about Apple products. But what happened with that, with the iPhone 4? It had that very specific design. In fact, they still do, don't they? And there's the line on it, the place, the X marks the spot. This is where you hold it to make it not work properly. But it was blown out of all proportion because all smartphones did the same thing when you hold it in a death grip, like people were doing with the iPhone 4. This wasn't something that was unique to Apple at all. And yet they seem to take all the blame for it. And you kind of hinted at this earlier in that, there are other companies making these devices that are getting targeted, but that are not getting targeted. It's Apple that's carrying the can for this stuff. So you've got a small number, proportionally very small number of people misusing AirTags, and then you get a load of animosity directed at Apple for it, which just doesn't seem reasonable to me. Doesn't seem reasonable to me that Apple doesn't have a large team of people who are very passionate and very dedicated to what they're doing. Quite often we look at corporations and you look at the big corporation, and if we think about Apple as a corporation, well, I don't have much good to say about it. I don't like its corporate policies, but corporations are made up too of individuals. So the people who work there, who form these teams, who came up with AirTags and are passionate about it as their project, don't imagine for 1 second that they'll be delighted to hear of these accounts of people being stalked. They'll be doing everything that they can to make a better product.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you're onto something there. Apple produced a knife, for example, and then someone used it inappropriately. Apple will probably get all the grief for that, despite the fact that knives have been around at least 50 years or so, something like that, I would say.
Yeah, I just thought it provides a little bit of balance to the issue. So it is a real issue, and anybody who's been stalked in any way,
it's not
what a horrific experience
horrible
to go through. And our hearts do go out to anybody who's been in such a position. The fact that AirTags can be used to do it, to some extent, it is concerning.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm sure that things will improve in this regard, and I think it's all about being cautious.
And use what we've discussed in this to be more aware of this as a potential threat. If you're in a situation where you think you're at risk, check your phone. If you've got an Android device, download this device and do a sweep. And if you've got any concerns, go to your local authorities. And just stay safe.
Yeah. Just bear in mind, if you live in an apartment building, the person below you might have an AirTag. Doesn't mean they're stalking you.
That is possible.
So, really interesting topic.
Thank
anyway,
you.
I'm sure we're going to get some comments on that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting.
Well,
yeah,
good. That does. I don't think I can delay it anymore. The problem with the Rumour Mill is this, right? Is that I know that we've been sent a musical submission.
We have.
From one of our subscribers, Vija, And I think he would be the first person to accept that this is not an example of.
It's not Beethoven's Sixth, is it?
It's not. In fairness, nothing you've ever produced is either, Pete.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
But what concerns me about this is that I know that there are lyrics that you are wanting to put with this. And I also know that I'm going to have to endure that live. And I can't keep talking anymore to stop you from doing this.
I've got some good news for you. I've left the lyrics on my phone, which are not here. So I can't remember them.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to make some up.
No.
To go and to be fair, the melody, if that's the collection of notes that we've been sent,
I think
don't go with my lyrics anyway.
The term melody is generous.
What I can promise you, listeners and watchers, is that we do have some better Rumour Mill jingles in the pipeline.
You keep promising. I'm going to keep panicking.
Good. That adds to the thing. So are you ready for this?
No, no, I'm not ready. Okay.
Let's go on a bit.
Okay.
Rumour. Ooh. Rumour.
This is going wrong.
Rumour.
Pete, I don't want to be associated with this.
Rumour.
Thank you for that.
Rumour Mill.
Unbelievable. Pete making bedroom noises to what was basically the jingle to some
That was
children's
not bedroom.
TV program.
It's not a bedroom noise. I never have said rumour in the bedroom.
I'm just going to say thank you very much for the musical submission. Please don't. Just anybody out there, please just don't encourage him because this is a plea. I'm desperate.
You've got some things to look forward to. The next one possibly as soon as next week.
No, and can we just say, like, if you are going to do jingles, let's make them jingles, shall we? A jingle is like, 10 seconds at the outside.
Yeah,
I mean, that felt like 3 hours.
That felt like a Muse song in terms of length. Obviously it was better than a Muse song.
I found with Muse,
I like Muse.
yeah, they're quite a good band,
They're
but
good.
I find that you sort of get 3-4 songs into that album and you get closer to that point where you want to slit your own wrists.
That's Radiohead, isn't it?
They are quite depressing. So here is the Rumour Mill, and the way this works is that we get a rumour each week, and then we, or more than one sometimes, and we then rank it,
Yes.
red, amber, or green on basically on how viable we think it is. And we've also had user submissions in terms of graphics this week from James. So now last week we were talking
Somewhere
about
here.
the graphics.
Yeah.
Okay,
Somewhere here.
maybe. Well, I thought we'd probably use them as we go. But he's sort of taken the theme of last week's podcast where we were talking about what are games and the rating system that they use. So he's done us an equivalent rating system. So we're going to use that for this week's podcast. And
Yeah.
I'll give the graphics to Tom.
What are games?
They're games. What?
Yeah. What are games? Games are things you use to entertain yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another classic dad joke there for
We
your collection.
love them.
I'm going to start with a rumour that's various sources on Twitter are saying that we're getting an iMac Pro, and we've debated this over and over. And is there going to be an iMac Pro? I think there might be an iMac Pro. What they're saying is 12 cores.
Yep.
Now, if it's going to be 12 core, let's just break this down a moment. The M1 Max and Pro chips are 10 core with 8 performance and 2 efficiency.
Yep.
So if it's going to be 12 core, I'm going to guess the makeup will be 10 performance and 2 efficiency. Not.
Seems reasonable.
So they're adding 2 more performance cores, not 2 efficiency cores. That would be my expectation for this rumour. And there's obviously a bit of cost involved in doing that. But it might be that that's something that they're going to make anyway for the new Mac Pro. It does sort of make sense that you'd have a desktop computer that's more powerful than the laptops.
Yeah.
But sort of running alongside that is the other rumor that they might do an M1 Max Duo or something like that. So get two of those stuck together and end up with 20 cores.
Like a W12.
Yes, in every aspect, apart from every aspect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what do we think about this? I mean, does that mean, if we say this rumor is correct, does that mean there's no large consumer iMac?
No, I think there will be. I think there will be, and I think we will potentially see that at the spring event.
Interesting.
But that's not what we're talking about here.
No.
So I think when you first said this to me, I thought, well, no, because that would require a whole new chip, which we're not expecting to the fall/autumn. But we then talked around it and thought, well, actually, it possibly is possible that the M1 Max does have 12 core versions that have been segregated for this purpose.
It is, well, everything is possible.
Has someone done an X-ray of the M1 Max?
Well, yes, but that doesn't mean that they can't add more cores. I mean, for me, it doesn't make sense from the perspective that it's quite obvious that the M1 Max design is ready to be tiled, if you like, so that you can have two of them running together or four of them running together. And we commented, must be last year now, but on the M1 Max chip, there's another bank of machine learning cores.
Yes.
You know how you've got 16 machine learning cores on the main bank? Well, there's another bank that are apparently switched off, and presumably Apple will switch those on in a more pro version of the chip. So for me, the Duo approach, particularly in a larger iMac chassis which could handle the thermals, seems to make more sense to me than banging another couple of cores into the M1 Max, which is already getting a little bit power hungry.
So maybe the latter will be used for the big iMac, and then the Duo approach for the Mac Pro.
Maybe. Well, I'm pretty sure that the new Mac Pro will have those options 2 and 4.
Because I don't think Apple will just stick a couple more cores on and be done with it. That's not their style. So there's going to be other things, which leads to the extra banks of machine learning cores being turned on, really leveraging the power that brings.
Yeah, I think so. And I keep coming back to these. Well, the first laptop that we got from these new types was the M1 Pro, and it's now with one of our developers, and that was the who does watch the podcast. Hello, Chris. So that one, I was just blown away by the battery life on it.
Yep.
With the performance that was on offer, even though that's the 8-core version of the M1 Pro, but it was just a fantastic machine. When I then got my own M1 Max, I found the battery life to be considerably worse.
Right.
And if you're pushing it in any way, it drains much faster than the Pro. And that's been shown in lots of other videos and other YouTube tech outlets that have been testing that. So these things are getting more power hungry. And you've got the full fat 32 graphics core version here. If you run that at full tilt, it's pulling quite a bit of power through the system compared to the original M1.
Yeah.
You add more cores into that, and it needs more power. It's going to generate more heat. It seems to me it would be more efficient to have multiple dies sort of joined together. But I could be completely wrong. I don't know.
Anyway, we need to move rapidly to a colour.
I don't know. I have to go amber, which is a bit that's a bit sad, isn't it?
No, because I think it's quite specific. What we're talking about here is something very specific, and I'd agree with you, Amber.
Okay, and iMac Pro, I'm going to say green.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we're going to get an iMac Pro.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that is earlier in the year than later in the year.
So for the first thing, then iMac Pro, we're going to say green. So we'll put up our Wata-esque
green. All right.
Yeah, and for the 12-core version of the chip, we're going to say amber.
Amber.
So see how it goes.
Excellent.
You got a rumour to share?
I have Mac rumours, and others have said that Apple were planning to introduce their augmented/virtual reality headset this year, 2022. But again, it's suggesting that the device's debut may be pushed back a year because of well, issues that need to be sorted out. It hasn't been specified whether those are technical issues or whether they're supply chain issues or both. Probably both, let's face it. I think that's interesting because I have this uncomfortable feeling that augmented/virtual reality is going to be one of those other technologies that none of us really asked for, but suddenly is going to be foisted upon us. And I can't give you a for instance of what other technologies we've had like that, but we do seem to get them. The reason I say that is obviously Facebook are talking about the metaverse. And there was a very big brand, Gymshark, who posted on LinkedIn a video of the founder, Ben Francis, very interesting guy, if you don't know who he is, and their marketing director having a virtual meeting in the metaverse. And you know, sometimes you watch something because metaverse just seems really gimmicky. But in the remote working world that we seem to have moved to now, it's much more common to do that. We're used to video calls, we're used to Zoom. You've got two people having a chat virtually like this, but virtually. And it was one of those sinking feelings where I thought, actually, I hate the idea of this, but I can see the benefits of it. I can see the benefits of being able to see someone's body language, even as an avatar, see how they're moving, see how they're reacting to something in a meeting being very powerful, which circles me back round to the fact that I think AR headsets and VR headsets are going to become more and more mainstream for business, not just gaming.
Well,
Don't know
so
what you think about that.
my take on this is, I mean, this has been doing the rounds for a long time. So long before Facebook started talking about metaverse and Apple or anyone else started talking about glasses, Microsoft had HoloLens.
Yeah.
I'm going back an awful long time here. I don't know how many years, but it's a long time.
About 5 years ago, I think.
It's a lot more than that.
Is it?
HoloLens, yeah. Perhaps we could use the power of Google, but suffice to say, it's been around for a long time, and the idea that Microsoft put forward was that these things could be used for AI purposes, and the thing they always show you is like an architect or an interior designer putting things in a room, or
Tom Cruise seeing who's going to murder next who.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Engineers working on things
Spaceships.
remotely as well, giving remote assistance, those kind of things. Loads of great business applications for AR, but it hasn't taken off.
No.
And it still exists. I'm sure it does, but it hasn't taken off. So then suddenly Facebook comes along with this idea of the metaverse, which is hardly a unique idea.
It's not a unique idea.
No.
I just have this uncomfortable feeling that it's suddenly going to become more of a thing than it previously had. I fear the time is right for it, for the populace.
Yeah, and I think maybe we're the wrong demographic for this, because I personally have no interest in a world like that, and I would rather be having face-to-face communication.
We are dinosaurs, though.
Yeah, and I do accept that. I do accept that that I've got to that point in my life where I question whether or not I'm still relevant.
I've got some news for you. You got to that point in your life a long time ago. Going back to this AR/VR headset from Apple, being pushed back to 2023, how are we going to rate that?
Green for me.
Yeah, green for me too. We know it's coming, but it's going to be green, so we're going to pop that up there.
Apple are going to wait, not just for the tech to be correct, not just for the supply chain to be sorted out, not just for the Apple Silicon transition to be done, but also for the market, for people to be ready for it.
Yeah. And then Tim will announce that they've invented virtual reality.
Probably.
Yeah, because that's what they do.
They'll get very excited about it.
So
anyway, we say green to that, so we'll
green. Pop that up there.
We'll pop that
I'd
up.
already said that, but
Yeah.
you're not paying attention to me.
I try not to pay attention to anything you say. if I'm
How
honest
long
with
have
you.
we been talking for now?
I couldn't even tell you.
No.
I imagine some amount of time.
Yeah, thanks for listening. If you've been listening this amount of time,
Yeah.
So what it might be quite nice to do is go out to the little theme tune that we've got.
Okay, well, before you set that going, then I should just say thanks to everybody for your comments and for your subscriptions. We appreciate the channel is slowly growing over here. If you like our content, then also check out the main channel, just knocking on the door of 30,000 subs. So
Wouldn't it be great to get that over 30,000?
it would. So yeah, send videos to friends and
Because we
stuff.
count in base 10, that would be quite a milestone.
It would. I'd quite like to get to 30,000 because it's been stagnant for a little while. It's been stuck in the 29,000s for some time. So it'd be nice to see a 30. Anyway, hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the like or the dislike if you didn't like.
And make sure you twang the bell.
Twang the bell.
Well, then they know when new content comes out, which is normally once a week on this specific channel. But
It'll be more than that, actually. We've got a video going up today, which will be yesterday for people who are watching this tomorrow.
excellent, that's great. So if that hasn't confused you, but we'll probably do on the main channel something about find AirTags in the rural location.
Yeah, we'll see
And
if we
if
can
that
get set
goes
up.
down well, what I think we should then do is go out to maybe the Yukon and try it there.
Perfect. Can we send Erin out?
Oh, that would be good. Just put her in the middle of the Yukon, and then say, there's 10 AirTags in this region. If you can find them, you can come home.
And then take the 10 AirTags home with us.
No. I'd be happy to leave them there.
Okay.
I think her chances of finding them are about nil.
Okay. Good.
Anyway.
It's been great to be so mean to Erin. She's not here. She can't do anything about it. And that's the best sort of mean.
I fear she might. I found an AirTag in my handbag this morning.
Did you? Your clutch.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is enough, right? Well, Pete is going to play us out with the jingle. Thanks, everyone. See you soon on the Constant Geekery podcast.
Thanks for watching. Cheerio. It's quite catchy when you get used to it. Rumour.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording now.